Welcome back to the My First Rodeo podcast, the show that asks very cool, interesting, and famous people about the various firsts on their paths to success. Today is no exception. We have a really cool guy, a really recognizable person, although maybe not a recognizable name, Michael Siegel. He is an actor that you would know mostly from a lot of movies and TV shows, including a cult classic, Killer Klowns from Outer Space, which just celebrated its 35th anniversary. And we're going to talk about a lot of things, including a bit of a shared history that we have. I met him when I myself was a child actor in the Columbia Artists National Tour of Camelot back in the early 80s. So crazy long time ago. He played two characters in that. He played Merlin most notably, and he was married. And although I think he was only in his early 20s, he seemed like such an adult. And I was on that tour alone. I had a tutor. I didn't have parents with me. And so the fact that there was a couple there just provided a little bit of stability. And although they didn't stay together and we didn't even stay in touch, they're people I remember fondly. And it was fun to catch up with him. I think you're going to enjoy the interview. We talk about a lot of things. We talk about his paths in stage and in commercials and in the movies. So that'll be a lot of fun. For now, I wanted to, a lot of good feedback I've gotten on the Scott Makar interview, Judge Scott Makar. Really interesting episode. If you didn't get a chance to listen to it, I think people were interested to learn about how unpredictable the justice system can be, and that there are rules, certainly. But I think a lot of people walked away from that interview, Judge Scott Makar, just understanding a little bit more about how important it is who we pick to be our judges, and who the lawyers are that appear before the judges and the arguments that they make, because it really does influence the outcome. We are not in an artificial intelligence era where you just plug in facts and a result comes out. Maybe we'll get there one day, but there's a certain humanity and personality and even biases, not necessarily uppercase B, we hope not, but certainly lowercase biases and implicit biases and life experiences and perspectives on the law that people bring to the bench that can influence the outcome. So take a listen to that interview if you haven't, and keep that feedback coming. I was watching a movie recently, speaking of empathy. It's an older movie, and I've watched it before, but I watched it from a different, had different observations this time. It's the movie The Joker. I guess you can call it a superhero movie, but there's really no, the arc is really just how the Joker became who he is. I think he's not a hero, by a long shot. He's not a hero. He's a really bad person that does bad things, but you learn his backstory, and gosh, it's a relatable backstory about, a kid that's different, who becomes an adult that's different and isn't raised very well and isn't treated very well, and just sort of how that all comes bubbling up, and he becomes this, horrible, violent, murderous person. And I'm not standing in defense of the Joker, but it was I was just struck with just how human his story was until obviously he made the choices that he did to become this nemesis to the good heroes in the Batman story. But if you haven't seen that one, watch it and watch it again if you have watched it, because I definitely had a different perspective of it this time around. I've also been staying busy hooking up Alexa in my house. I finally have broken down, and I'm the proud owner of not one or two, but now 6 Alexas throughout my house. And just did it really quick. I was visiting friends up in Atlanta, Georgia, and they had it, and I thought it was the coolest thing. And whatever hesitation I had about Big Brother listening, I have to confess, I just don't care. I don't have anything that interesting to say. And if Alexa and Amazon and the people that they partner with can tell me what I want before I even know that I want it, good for them. No, I mean, yeah, I see the dangers of that kind of thing, but it really is fun to always have someone to talk to. When my daughter's not with me, I do a week on, week off with my daughter when she's not there. It's nice to be able to tell Alexa to put on some music for me or answer questions for me. Of course, I do find that I spend some time arguing with Alexa, or at least telling Alexa to turn off when she's doing things I don't want her to do. So I'm not sure how well it's preparing me for humanity, but at least I look a little less stupid when I'm talking to myself. So that's what I've been up to. I am really excited to talk about acting with my old acting buddy, Michael Siegel. I stopped acting really at the end of high school. And the heck, that's just when he was getting into it. And he's done it at a really high level. He hasn't taken himself or maybe even the opportunities that seriously. I shouldn't say that. He takes the opportunities very seriously, but he doesn't take himself so seriously that he's not willing to go. You'll hear work in a circus and do a whole bunch of commercials and some movies that are independents that you may or may not know anything about, so that he can keep working, but also so that he can keep mining the craft. So I think you're going to enjoy this. Here's me talking to Michael Siegel. How you doing, brother? Good to talk to you.
How are you? It's good to see you.
It is good to see you. You've always got such a warm smile. I wish our listeners could see your warm smile, but they could certainly Google you and see it.
So, is this going to be on like one of the video formats as well?
I've stopped using the video format. I just I know that's the trendy thing to do, and I do broadcast it or release it on YouTube. But I don't know. I'm just an old radio fan, and I think the podcast is a nice throwback to that. So plus, people like to not have to wear pants, so that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, I'm not wearing any right now.
Right. And I'll describe what you're missing, listeners, in case you want to know what Michael Siegel looks like without pants. But, man, it's good to talk to you. You and I go back a little ways.
Quite a long time, actually.
We do.
Something like 40 some years.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it was early 80s, 82. I was a child actor, I'd say. Yeah, I was. And you were like the adult. We were on a tour of Camelot, right?
Yeah, I was an adult. I was like 22 or 23 years old at the time.
You seemed so old to me, and you were married at the time. So, like, I was a 13-year-old shipped off on a bus for 3 or 4 months. And, just being around a couple. I know y'all didn't stay married, but at the time, that was stability for me.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you remember, a lot of not very pleasant things happened on that tour in regards to that relationship. So
I was blissfully oblivious.
Yeah.
I was just a 13-year-old kid with a bunch of adults ish people. So I'm sure I missed a lot of what was going on. What's that?
Adult-ish. Nice word. Yeah, because we didn't feel, I didn't feel like an adult at all. I was just this kid who just loved to have a good time and get on stage, have some fun doing that and then party as much as I could after.
Well, let's talk about how you get there, because that, again, for our listeners, was the national tour, Columbia Artists National Tour of Camelot. You, of course, were Merlin. Everybody knows that character.
And Pellinor.
That's right. I always kind of thought they were the same-ish, but I didn't quite understand the relationship there.
No, Merlin was, you know who Merlin was. He was the one who kind of helped Arthur become what he became.
Sure.
And King Pellinor was a friend of Arthur's.
Right. So maybe just because
I have no idea what he was the king of. I couldn't tell you what the hell he was the king of at all.
Maybe it was just because they were both you. It seemed like the same.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe I just didn't play the characters separately.
Well,
thanks, Mike. I appreciate that.
I don't know. I only had to be there for like 10 minutes a day. Remember, I had this tiny little part at the end of the play. Amazing enough to even
run.
Yes, exactly. I got to run. That was it. But so how close is that to your first rodeo? When did you start acting relative to early 80s Camelot?
Well, professionally or even before, how did I get into acting?
Yeah, let's go there.
All right. Let me give you a little background history. Growing up, I used to go to a lot of shows, a lot of musicals, actually, because my father was a professional violinist. And he used to play at all the first run shows that would come into the National Theater in DC, and and at JFK, the Kennedy Center.
The Kennedy Center, sure.
Yeah, so my father was also the contractor there, so he would hire a lot of musicians as well. So growing up as a kid, from the time I was 4, I was always going to musicals. I saw every single show with every single, fantastic artist at the time, like Ethel Merman and Zero Mostel and Debbie Reynolds and Robert Preston and all of those kind of people, Jerry Orbach.
Wow.
I grew up on all of that. But during that time, I was all about baseball. All I wanted to do was play sports. Baseball was my thing. That's what I wanted to do for a career. But as I got older and got into high school, I made the high school team, but I was a terrible student. I was absolutely the worst student ever. Flunked off of the baseball team in high school because I didn't pass enough classes, and that was embarrassing enough.
And this is up in the Maryland area?
Maryland, yeah. And this was when I was. That was my year 10, and when we got into 11th grade, I had a Spanish teacher who would not speak English in the class.
Yeah.
Now, I just barely gotten through first year Spanish, and second year Spanish, I was just completely lost. And I even asked her a question in English on the first day, and she answered me in Spanish, and I just got up and walked out of the class, went down to my guidance counselor, and I said, what else can I do? Because do I need to have another, foreign language? She said, no, you have your foreign languages. Let's see. She said, well, you could take drama. That's how she said it. You can take drama if you want.
Apparently that counts as a language, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. Wow. And it actually counts in the English area of electives.
Okay.
And I said, well, yeah, maybe I could do that. That seemed like an easy thing to do after seeing so many shows.
Right.
I thought, I'll do that. So I went into the class, and honestly, within a week, I knew what my calling was.
Wow.
Just fit. Everything fit. The type of people that were in there fit with the type of person that I was, the type of personality that I was. I guess I never gelled with the jocks so much. Even though I was kind of involved in part of that, I never gelled with them. I was always in a different area. And so in 11th grade, I made some of my best friends in my drama class. And then I started doing the shows there. And by the end of my senior year, I had applied to about 10 different schools that were all drama theater oriented. And I got into Ohio University. And so I went 1 year at Ohio University. And then after 1 year, I dropped out because I partied too much. And I decided I want to have a gap year. And so I just went and worked in a Jewish deli for a year in Maryland.
And that's where you've been getting all your characters ever since.
What's that?
That's where you've been getting all your characters ever since.
It seems that way, doesn't it? Yeah. Nowadays, I've grown into the whole Jewish thing. But what happened was I went and worked a gap year at this Jewish deli. And in the midst of that, I almost cut my thumb off.
Oh, no.
And so I couldn't work for a while. And it was coming up to September, and my mom knew someone at Montgomery College in Rockville in the theater department. She said, why don't you just go over and talk to Susan Hoffman? So I went over and talked to Susan, and she said, yeah, well, if you want to start coming here, you can, I told her my background a little bit. And that sort of just catapulted me into really making it a career, because I was doing all the shows there. I was getting recognition. I came in runner-up in our region for the Irene Ryan competition, which is big acting countrywide acting competition. So there was all these things that were happening, and then I auditioned at Juilliard, and that was just awful. I went in there and I couldn't even remember a single line. I was so embarrassed. But it was the first big audition I ever did. And I blew it. I went in, that feeling when you go, I'm so nervous. When you're really nervous and you get that weird depth perception thing going on where you feel like people are like a million miles away from you, but they're not.
Sure.
That's how it felt when I walked in that room. It was like that kind of tunnel cone vision. And I couldn't do it. So then I went and auditioned at American Academy, and I got in there, And it just sort of went from there. And after my first year at America, this is another long story. I don't know how much time.
It's a good story.
So at the end of my first year, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And at the American Academy, you could skip the second year and go straight to the third year if they vote you in that way. But I wasn't sure how I was doing there. So during the summer, they're supposed to send you letters out and tell you whether you've made it or you didn't make it, or you made it second year, third year, whatever. So I decided I'm going to go back down to Maryland for a week, see my family. I'm going to go to the Harlequin and see some friends there and go see a show. And so while I was down there, they, Nick Howie came up to me and Dalit Norris, and they said, would you be interested in doing a national tour of South Pacific? And I'd already done a show at Harlequin anyway. Before I went up to the American Academy, I'd done Music Man.
I was going to say, for our listeners, Harlequin was really a hallmark in Montgomery County, a suburb of Washington, D.C., and it was a dinner theater in the classic sense that there's still dinner theaters around, but it was around for many years. A lot of great actors came through there, and then they launched this touring company.
Absolutely, which I think it's still going today. But so I had done one show at Harlequin. They knew me quite well. And when I came back down, they asked me if I wanted to do South Pacific. And I was kind of in this, in this middle of not knowing whether I was going to be asked back to the American Academy. And so I decided to sign a contract to do this tour. Then I went back up to New York for the rest of the summer. And it was about 2 weeks before I was supposed to go away. I get a call from the director of the American Academy. And I'm thinking, why is he calling me? And he said, Michael, how are you? And I said, I'm fine, thanks. He said, look, we're having some representatives come from different universities around the country. And, we need someone to be our representative here and take them around and show them school. And since you're coming back as a third-year student, and I went, what? And I said, I am? And he said, yeah, didn't you get the letter? I said, no, I haven't gotten any letter at all. I've never got anything. So I assumed that I wasn't coming back. And he said, well, but you're coming back and we love you and we want you to, be a third year student. I went, uh-oh. Because I said, look, I told him I signed a contract to do this tour. And he got so angry with me.
Oh, no.
He was screaming at me down the phone. He said, you're making a mistake. It's too soon. You shouldn't be doing this. You need to finish your training. And I didn't listen. I left. I dropped out and I went down to Maryland. We did the tour, and then Camelot was the second tour for that. And it sort of went from there. After we did Camelot, my wife at the time, we decided we were going to go out to LA and try to make something happen. And so we both went out there, and I think within the first year, she got into a horror movie herself. Did you know that?
I did not. I remember, she was very beautiful, and I remember she was looking at things out there. I don't remember what her arc was there.
Yeah, well, it's really funny because I think she got into a horror movie called Boogeyman 2.
Okay.
And, of
course, everybody remembers Boogeyman 1. I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Nobody remembers Boogeyman 2. But it was one of those, obviously crazy, weird horror films. I think she got killed in the bathroom by toothpaste while she was brushing her teeth or something.
That happens to a lot of people.
I know. All the time. Me, I die every morning when I brush my teeth. Sensitive teeth.
It's the danger of good oral hygiene.
I know. So, and then, I was kind of struggling a bit, and I finally got cast in this. I'm telling you my whole life story now.
No, it's good. It's good.
Here's the thing, because, the acting, when we moved out there, nothing was really happening for me. But Sarah and I were trying to get to know LA a bit. So we went to the Comedy Store.
And we're in what, late 80s now?
This was right after the Camelot tour.
Okay, so 83.
In 82, we moved out there.
Okay.
Yeah. So we decided to go to the Comedy Store. There was one in Westwood at the time. And we saw a great show. It was really funny. We saw some great comics that night. And I remember walking out of there going, oh, I could never do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my thing at all. It's so hard what they do.
And to that point, you'd been educated traditionally as an actor. You had taught yourself, I guess, to some extent, but
Pretty much.
But improv was not your thing. Stand-up comedy was not your thing, and screen acting not yet at that point, right?
That's right. None of that was my thing.
Okay.
I didn't have a clue. I was trying to take some classes in LA. I took a on-screen acting course, and I felt really uncomfortable in it because I really didn't have a clue what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And it took later on, I got better and better at it as time went on. But it was, at first it was quite a struggle for me to try to figure out how to make that transition from theater to screen.
Well, it's very artificial, and there's a lot of waiting around. And obviously filming things out of sequence. I imagine it's a real challenge to make that leap, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's a different mentality. You have to have a kind of a different feel and a different approach to how you work that. And it's a different way of preparing. Everything is different. But so I got cast in another show when I was in there at this place called the Crenshaw Theater. Mm-hmm. And this was after, a few months after I'd been to the Comedy Store. And the show was called Third City Live. So it was a cross between Second City TV and Saturday Night Live. It was going to be a sketch comedy show. And, those kind of things I could do because I had a lot of fun, weird characters that I could do and stuff. And then we kept going, and every day somebody kept dropping out. And then I remember showing up one day, just me and another guy. And the door was locked, and we were supposed to have rehearsal, but nobody was there. So we called the theater, and they said, "Oh, the show's been canceled. The director quit, the writer quit, so there's not going to be a show now." And so the guy that showed up with me was Peter Licassi. Mm-hmm. And so there we were standing there going, we finally got an opportunity to do something. We don't want to let it go. We want to keep moving with this. So we decided to go to the Burger King across the street and kind of talk things out and try to figure out maybe what we could do. And we decided that we were going to start our own improv group. Mm. And we called the guy at the theater and said, "Can we use your theater to audition people for this improv group?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem." So it was really nice of the guy to let us do it. So we auditioned a bunch of people, and we hired 4 other people, and we had this improv group called Special Delivery.
Special Delivery.
Yeah. And we lasted about 1.5 years, 2 years, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But we got pretty good. We worked hard. We rehearsed. We figured out, I know it's improv. What do you need to rehearse? Right. But we rehearsed, and it came out to, we started working at the Ice House in Pasadena. And the Ice House, which is rare. Usually improv groups don't, get spots there or anything. And so we actually, he gave us a side room every week or every 2 or 3 weeks to do a thing as long as we could bring people in. And we were getting good enough. We were bringing in, at least filling half the room. And I think the room sat 100 to 150 or something like that. And that's not bad.
Not bad at all.
And, so things were going well. But there started to be, little things that were happening. And then I had an idea about something that I had done at college. And I approached Pete one day. I said, "Would you be interested in putting this little routine together and showing it to the group?" So we put together this comedy dance routine called Greaser Ballet. Ah. And we did it for the group and said, "Can we do it? I know we know it's not improv, but could maybe we do it in the show?" And so we did it in the show, and it killed. It was one of those magical moments where it was rolling laughter throughout the whole routine.
Yeah, and you can't. That became a hallmark of Licassi and Siegel, and you could Google it or you can check it out on YouTube. It's I laugh every time I watch it. It's so physical. The pauses, just the way you look at each other, the way you look at the audience. It's not improv, as you say, but it just feels so organic.
Yeah, I mean, it's that fun. And I mean, some people will categorize it as slapstick. Some people will categorize it as, you know, old style comedy, you know, from back in the Charlie Chaplin days, those kind of things, or a little cross in Monty Python in there. We just have this very unique style of odd, kind of quirky characters and costumes with, you know, a weird twist to them.
Mm-hmm. Fair amount of bodiness. I saw your rear end, and
very physical. Yeah.
I've seen your rear end in at least a couple. I don't recall if the Greaser Ballet has it, but so I was watching one this morning where you guys are doing. I'll call it magic tricks. You're in a box.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one. I like that one quite a bit, and pretty impressive. The way you're able to jump in and out of that box is quite gymnastic.
I was young then. I can't do that anymore.
So I mean, you and he forge a relationship starting then that goes for decades.
Yeah, for about 15 years, but our friendship lasted, you know, 40 some years.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, you know, I told you about when we went to the Comedy Store. My wife and I went to the Comedy Store. I said, "Oh, I can never do that." Within 2.5 years, we were on that same stage performing there,
wow.
Trying to work on new material and stuff. And it took us another 1.5 years. We became regulars at the Comedy Store. Mitzi Shore took us under her wing, and you know, she was very, very smart. You know, the first, you know, we had about 6.5 minutes, and then we were trying to get 15 minutes together so we could do Vegas at the Comedy Store in Vegas, and she would come see us occasionally, and then we finally got our 15 minutes, but we had some talking in between. That was during this routine that we did called dueling banjos, where Pete plays the banjo very, very well, and I can't play the guitar at all.
I do remember that one.
Yeah, so that's where the humor comes from, and the conflict. And the first day in Vegas, she finally said, "Yeah, you're ready to do Vegas." She saw us, and she put us in Vegas. We did our rehearsal in the afternoon, and she came up to us afterwards, and she said, "Look, do it all again, but this time don't talk."
Don't talk?
Yeah, don't talk.
Huh.
She said, "Don't talk." She says, "You don't talk much in the first act. You don't talk much in your third act. In the second act, you talk too much. So don't talk. It'll keep the pace and the flow going much better." And so we did it, and she was right.
Wow.
We were able to do that dueling banjos, saying minimal amount. I think we buttoned it at the end with a little comedy thing. And so then we had these 15 minutes of no talking. And one thing led to another. You know, we had been doing Vegas. We did Vegas for about 4 or 5 years with her at the Comedy Store, at the Dunes, and at the Golden Nugget. And during that time, this guy came in to see us who booked internationally. And he said, "Look, I can get you guys booked all over the world," because we didn't talk.
Right.
And he did. He booked us everywhere. We got so much work everywhere in the world. I think we performed in 5 continents.
Wow, just the two of you, and doing 15 minutes, or moving up to
not even that. Sometimes we would do it depended. We were doing a lot of TV stuff, you know, all different kinds of variety shows around Europe or in South America. We did Japan 4 times. We did about 30 to 40 TV shows worldwide doing our act. And then, of course, that led to us getting it. We got an agent when we were in LA. And then before you know it, you know, our agent was getting us out for film and television stuff. And so Pete and I were booked quite a bit as brothers, or, you know, we looked similar. So we were getting booked together quite a bit.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, because you guys you don't look identical at all, but you look like you're related, and you each have a certain look, and it's a malleable look. We'll get to that in the various ethnicities that you've played along the way. But how would you describe that? I don't know. I can offend you if I'm saying you look like a lot of ethnicities.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can cross over from Jewish to Italian, maybe a little bit of, you know, Mediterranean, you know, that kind of thing.
I definitely like that.
You know what? I don't know. I don't think it. There's so many Jewish comics. There's so many Italian comics. I don't think it matters one bit, what your ethnicity is when it comes to doing comedy. Everybody has their little niche that works for them, regardless of that. So for us, though, I don't think it made that big of a deal, that much. I mean, we did about 4 or 5 episodes on Santa Barbara, where we played a couple of Italian gangsters, which was a lot of fun. We enjoyed that. And then, of course, we did this thing on 30-something called, we were these radon busters called Barry and Larry.
30, you say 30-something.
30-something.
I remember 30-something. That was a great series in the 90s, early to mid-90s, right?
Exactly. It was late 80s, early 90s. And we got cast playing these characters. Unfortunately, we ended up on the cutting room floor, which was great. But the producers, I think Ed Zwick and whoever else was producing at that time, they were kind enough to say, look, we really liked you. We felt bad that we had to cut your scene, but we'd like to bring you in individually and each play a part on another episode. And they did. They kept their word. So I ended up doing this big wedding episode where I only had one little scene.
Yeah.
And then Pete ended up doing, I can't remember what he did. I don't know what episode it was, but I think he played like a boxing referee in a dream sequence or something. I don't know. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, that's a good show.
Yeah, it was. But so we did, we were getting that kind of work.
Right.
But we were also getting these jobs that would take us away for a year at a time.
Right. And when you were in a location, say Japan or Europe or wherever you were playing, were you in a venue for, a period of weeks or months? How would that work?
Well, most of it was just, the majority of it was a TV show here or there.
I see.
And we were there for 3 or 4 days. We'd fly to the Netherlands and do a TV show there. We'd fly to Spain and in Madrid and do a TV show there. And then we'd be going in and out.
Doing your comedy act.
Doing our act, yeah. Just doing 1 or 2 routines. It was mostly the ballet and the ham boning.
Yeah. So most of your comedy, full comedy shows were reserved for the Comedy Store.
Yes and no. We were out on the road. I think we did this Comedy Zone.
Here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Well, no, I don't know if it was called this Comedy Zone. Maybe it was. I don't know. There were 3 of them.
Yeah.
We did some circuit. There was one in either North or South Carolina. There was one down near in Orlando somewhere.
That sounds right.
What the third one was.
Yeah.
So we did those. We were doing some comedy clubs around, and Mitzi was putting us in the Comedy Store circuit.
Right.
Excuse me. But I think the 2 big things we did that it led to things. We did 2 different 6 months doing these variety theater shows in Germany. So we were in Stuttgart twice for 6 months at a time, just doing this act with a bunch of different other, comedy performers or unique performers of some sort.
Right.
It just depended on what the show was. So we did that, and then we did this circus for a year.
The circus,
because the guy had seen us, and the owner of the circus really liked us, and he brought us into Frankfurt to do a gala for 2,000 people to see how the German audience would react to us, a live German audience. And yeah, I mean, he must have loved us, because he called us about 3 months later and said, do you want to do our circus? And we said no. We didn't. And then our agent called us and said, well, here's what he's offering. And we kept saying no and no, and finally called us directly.
Yeah.
And he said, look, what's the problem? Is it the money? And we were having a 3-way conference call, and Pete and I simultaneously went, yeah. But it wasn't really the money, because we didn't really want to go away for a year.
Yeah.
To Germany and travel around Germany, living in a caravan and, in a circus.
It's literally a circus. We're talking elephants and zebras and tigers and.
No, well, there were horses, there were tigers and lions. There were all kinds of smaller animals like rabbits and ferrets and those kind of things.
Right.
But there were no elephants.
Right.
It was just, this Circus Roncalli, was the circus. I'm jumping around a bit.
That's okay.
But it was the circus that the guys who invented Cirque du Soleil saw and went, ooh,
okay,
we can do something like that, but we'll make it better.
Sure.
See what I mean? So Cirque du Soleil took an idea from Roncalli and expanded on it.
It's a little more boutique than your Ringling Brothers and, I don't know, a little higher brow.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it was, I mean, they're still going today. And it was the 15-year anniversary for them when we did it back in 1991.
Okay.
And so we just kept saying no to the guy. He said, what is it, the money? And we went, yeah, it's the money. And so he just made an offer that we just couldn't say no to. It was and we found out later why. And the minute we said, okay, yeah, we'll do it for that, he said, okay, I'll see you in a week.
Wow.
And we went, what? He said, yeah, I'll see you in a week. And Pete and I were like freaking out. How do you pack up everything you have and figure everything out to go away for a year?
Yeah, he had kids and all that stuff too.
It wasn't easy, but we managed. We got there, and it was a bit of a learning curve to do this circus. It took us a little while to get comfortable there, to live in that kind of environment, because it was so foreign to us.
Sure.
I mean, we're in a different country. You're basically living, I started wearing clogs.
That's a good look. That's a good look. Do you still wear them to this day?
No, I only wore them at the circus. I never wore them again. But I really liked them. They were quite comfortable.
You thought you might be a clog guy for a minute, though. You sort of tried it on.
Yeah, no. I thought when the first time I put them on, I went, "Oh, come on, this can't be right." And then I got used to them. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Listeners, talk amongst yourself while Michael's a little verklempt here. He's coughing.
Maybe you can cut this out.
Yeah, I know. This is the best part so far. I'm enjoying this, actually. It's an old Jewish deli injury, I believe.
Oh, yeah. I cough, I spit, I sneeze. It's all over the place.
It's endearing. It's endearing.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, so I started wearing clogs, and we got used to the circus and living in the mud, and the smells of the animals and all of that. And,
were you single at the time? Were you dating some high wire act ladies?
I met my second wife, who was a dancer in the circus.
Okay, that's a good thing. That's of the people that you could date in the circus. I would say the dancer would be one of the better options.
Yeah, I was looking at the bearded ladies.
We both have beards. You'd have to shave yours, and it'd be a whole thing.
Well, I didn't have a beard at the time, so I didn't want her to tickle me.
Yeah, that's true. That could be a bit intimidating.
We met and we got married. We got pregnant and married during the run of that circus.
Really? Wow. You don't waste any time, Siegel. Yeah.
No, it was crazy. It all just happened because I'd been single for a few years at that point, and I made it very clear that I didn't really want to have any heavy relationships. I had my daughter. I was putting my focus into kind of taking care of her, and when I got to the circus, I let my guard down. Everything changed.
Right.
I didn't have any of those responsibilities from home that I would usually have, and
eating peanuts every night. I mean, all the peanuts you wanted to eat, probably.
Oh yeah, that's all I did.
And wear clogs, peanuts and clogs.
Germany, so, yeah, peanuts, clogs, and beer.
So you were in the best shape of your life, I'm guessing.
Oh, I was. I'll tell you, I was, because we were doing 2 shows a day, almost 7 days a week.
Now, how do you play? Is it a circus in the round where you having to play all? Yeah. So how does that work? Because obviously you were a stage act and a TV act, so smaller audiences focused in front of you.
Yeah, you learn to adjust, and there's an entrance into the ring, and so not everybody's sitting behind you,
right?
But you learn to play to the whole crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've had an experience. We opened for Shaka Khan.
Okay.
And it was only for I think 5 or 6 shows up in the New England area. And they needed an act to go up there and be the opening act for Shaka Khan. Now, what we didn't realize was that it was all in the round, and the stage constantly moved as you were performing.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that makes it a little easier. At least you didn't.
Yeah,
so you didn't have to pivot because you were already pivoting.
Yeah, but there was a problem with that.
Okay.
They had set up all of their equipment on the stage already.
So you'd be blocked.
So they had this big wall of speakers.
Right.
So only half the audience could see us half the time.
Right. So you had to keep running around the speakers as you turned?
We had some stuff that we couldn't do that because it was on the edge of a stage.
Yeah, this sounds like a horrible booking.
It was trying, to say the least. We could not get engaged with the audience at all. Now, we talked. There was one place in Connecticut, and we talked to them and asked them if they could shift everybody to one side because it was only half sold.
Right.
Shift everybody to one side and not move the stage and let us perform. So the people that booked us could see that we were worthy of being booked because we were pretty much bombing the rest of the time.
I would imagine. I mean, I'm sure I know you're great because I've seen the act, but that's one of the things that's always puzzled me about sort of the old school comedians or those types of acts before a pop artist. I love the idea, and as a comedian myself, I'd love to try it. At the same time, they're not there to see. They're not in that sort of mood. They're not in that sort of vibe. They're there to see Shaka Khan in the case of that. So that's got to be so hard to overcome. It's almost a hostage situation. You're holding them hostage so that they can see Shaka Khan.
In a way, we'd never done anything like that. And also, I think it's because we did the ham boning that they thought it would be a good match.
Mm-hmm.
Because anyway.
Yeah. I think it's fun to try those things, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was an experience that, if it wasn't, when we did it in front of just the crowd without the stage moving,
right.
It was great. It was brilliant. It was the perfect night. And we proved that, the problem wasn't us. The problem was the situation, and we couldn't change it. So, but, still to have that experience was great. But, the other thing is when we were in Germany, because we did the Winter Garden Theater for 6 months in Berlin after we did the circus, and it was the same guy who did the circus was doing that show as well, and he wanted us to do this festival outside, right outside of the theater, and it was a week of performing outside, and that never worked for us either. It didn't. We couldn't engage with the audience enough. There was too
many things to look at.
It was all dissipated because there was too many other things for them to do while they're outside instead of focusing on stage to what we were doing. So that made it difficult for us. So we never liked to perform outside either. We like comedy clubs.
Yeah, that's the best. It's got to smell like stale beer. It's got to smell like that. I want to get to your movies, and one in particular I'm sure you can appreciate, and then your commercials. But so how does Lucchese and Siegel run its course?
Lucchese and Siegel, during that time of the circus, things were getting difficult between Pete and I because we'd been in each other's back pockets for years. And, Pete, and I've written a screenplay about this, by the way. Pete and I started just having differences. We coexist and how we deal with performing every night. He was a prolific note giver, which made things difficult because it's hard to hear negativity all the time. And I'm talking about after every show. And when you're doing 14 shows a week, that's a lot. It's difficult. It's difficult to take. And we'd always done it, but we were only working Fridays and Saturdays or doing a TV show here or there or whatever. So it became a big issue when we were doing the show every single day, twice a day, and then being told, oh, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you did this wrong, you did that. And it just put this wedge in between us. And it came to a head during the circus where we decided, well, I think I decided more than anything because I couldn't deal with it anymore. And, we had a real love for each other, and it had nothing to do with that. It was just we worked differently at that point. I was kind of this guy who just said, go out there and just have fun, just, deal with it. You make a mistake, big deal, just be in the moment and have some fun. But he was a guy who wanted everything perfectly timed out, made because it was physical comedy. It all had to be perfect. The timing every night had to be exactly the same as the night before and the night after and blah, blah, blah. I agreed to a point, but not to the level that he wanted. So that started the rift between us.
Interesting.
And so we went back to LA after that. We took a break from each other for good period of time. But then we got back together. And when we got back together, Merv Griffin called. And he said, look, I'm sorry. Oh, no, he called our agent and asked if we would be interested. He said he saw our tape and asked if we'd be interested in doing the Resorts International at Atlantic City for a year. And we said, yeah, why not? Let's do it. That'll be fun. And again, it was worthwhile. I could take the whole family there. They put us up in an hotel apartment, in right on the beach, on the boardwalk. And we did a year there the show was called Pom Pom. And they would, every 6 weeks, they bring in a new 50s or 60s performer. So, we were working with guys like Chubby Checker and Gary U.S. Bonds and Benny King and Leslie Gore, Davy Jones. They were all coming in. So we got a chance to kind of work with these guys, and that was quite fun.
That's neat.
It was a great year, absolutely great year. But at that point, I think we went and did, we kept going for another 2 or 3 years even after that. But the notes started to creep back in. All those things that were the problem when we were at the circus were starting to, rear its ugly head again.
Yeah.
And I think it got to a point where Pete and I were kind of tired of being out of LA because once we were out of LA for so long, people kind of forgot who we were there. Mitzi wasn't really booking us at the Comedy Store anymore. Things had moved on, with what she was trying to do there. And, because we were gone a lot, so we weren't getting spots when we called in for them, which was unusual. And I think we did one more job in Japan, and that was it. We just said it was in 1996, and that was it. We just decided we needed a break. We had enough of each other. We had enough of being on the road. And I think we lasted, a good 4 years past what most comedy teams do, because most comedy teams have like a 10-year lifespan.
Yeah, no, it's incredible what you guys did.
We went a little bit longer. But you know what? Pete and I remained friends from that point on.
Yeah.
There was no animosity towards each other at all about it. We both just kind of decided it was time. But I mean, part of me kind of wishes we hadn't.
Yeah.
I wish we kept going and doing other stuff because things got really difficult after that, personally.
For you and for him, obviously.
Well, I don't know. There were some things that for him, I mean, he figured out a way. I don't know, for a while we just weren't communicating a whole lot. I was still trying to do some acting, getting myself out there. And I don't know if he was or not. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember now. But then everything kind of went pear-shaped with my personal life.
Yeah.
With the woman I was married to from the circus.
Those circus marriages are tough.
They are. They really are. There's only so much clown makeup you can wear over the years.
Yeah. Well, speaking of clowns, where in the arc of Lacassi and Siegel does Killer Klowns from Outer Space come into the picture?
That came in 88, 87. I think we were filming in 87 or 88. It came out in 88, May of 88, so maybe we're filming in 87. That came in kind of in the first 4 years of our career.
Okay, so that's an early one. Totally different path than what you were doing otherwise. And
the circus after that, we did a lot of stuff after that.
Yeah, and you guys just celebrated, if that's the right word, is it the 25th anniversary of Killer Klowns?
35th.
35th, excuse me. Math was never my strength, Michael. Sorry.
That's all right. We'll work it out.
And
geometry.
And so talk about that experience. How do you get it? What's the first day like on set? And then at what point, is it during the movie, after, or years after, that you realize it's this cult classic?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we had an agent, and believe it or not, our agent at the time, it was Irvin Arthur and Associates, and one of the associates there was an agent called Ellie Canner. Now, Ellie was very, very good at her job, extremely good. She got us this audition. She saw these two boys. She said they were looking for two guys who were similar, could be brothers, blah, blah, blah. And so we went in there and did this. She sent us off, and we went in and did this really quirky, off-the-wall audition. We're just kind of being our weird, silly selves that worked with the characters.
Sure.
And, Stephen, he liked us. He brought us back in for second reading. And again, the first time we went in, we were wearing bathrobes and we were eating popsicles.
How did you decide on that style choice?
I don't know. I think we just wanted to have that kind of, let's wear something where we could look the same.
Right. And you had bathrobes.
I don't know why we wore the bathrobes. I think Pete wasn't feeling well, or one of us was ill.
Yeah.
And that sort of led to it. And then the popsicles, obviously, because we were supposed to sell ice cream.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So we did that. And so we just had this really fun time. And even the Kyotos talk about it nowadays. Steven still talks about it. Like, I think he even did it on one of the what do they call those, secret eggs, or what do they call them, hidden eggs?
Yeah.
That you get on DVDs.
Oh, sure. Yeah, little fun facts.
Yeah. So I think when they talked about our audition. It was just one of those quirky things. And so we got cast. And Ellie, she ended up becoming a great casting director. She ended up, because she was our agent, she became a great casting director, and she ended up casting Friends, the original cast of
How about
Friends.
that? Wow, that's a home run.
Yeah. And then she had her own casting office where she was casting different things. And actually, after Pete and I split up, I didn't know what to do. So I was an apprentice for her for a short period of time over at Fox Studios.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do. So I went to her, I said, I need to do something. And she said, well, you can apprentice with me if you want. And I only did it for a couple of months.
Yeah.
It was during the time when they were casting two guys, a girl, and a pizza place.
Okay.
Remember that show?
Yeah.
With Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when do you realize that movie's gonna actually do something?
Oh, Killer Klowns. Well, here's another funny thing. When I went to, we went to the premiere, which was, just a cast and crew premiere, really. And the movie was fun to watch. What was weird is that after that, it lasted in theaters for about 2 weeks.
Okay. Not a long run.
No. And then that was it. It was forgotten about.
Yeah.
For the longest time, until videos and DVDs came out. And, when those started coming, the videos started coming out, and then the DVDs, it started to get this little following. And it wasn't until streaming services started putting it up there where, it was open to a larger audience.
I see.
Where it started kind of gaining this cult classic thing. So I would say 20, 25 years.
Oh, so it was a while later.
Maybe Kyoto's probably have a better idea of what. Huh?
I say, so it was a while later. It was a while later.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It didn't pick up that cult status for a while. And I'd actually disassociated myself with the film for a long time because I just thought that it was such I embrace it now.
Yeah.
And I really love it. And after, I went to one of those conventions, one of those horror conventions, where the fans come and, they want your autograph and stuff like that and just want to meet you. Sure.
That was Texas this summer, right?
Yeah, it was in Dallas, outside of Dallas. And it was the first and only one I've ever done. And it was quite eye-opening because I didn't realize the extent of the vast amount of people that love this movie.
Yeah.
And with the video game coming out now, they're still talking about a sequel, and it's still got this engine behind it that keeps pushing it forward, and maybe someday there will be a sequel. Who knows? But the Kyoto's been trying to get something done for 35 years, and they still just can't get anybody to sign it off.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you've been in a ton of movies. You've had a lot of...
I wouldn't say a ton. Well, not a ton.
You've been in dozens of movies.
No.
No. You need to read your own IMDb or IMDb.
I know what's on there, but a lot of those are on there. There's like kind of independent things or small little movies and stuff. I've done probably more TV, professional TV stuff than I have movies.
Yeah. So talk about that. How do you wind up making that pivot? And then the commercials. You're such a familiar face in commercials. You seem to show up in holiday commercials. How does that happen?
It's really funny. When I was in the States, I could not. I probably auditioned for 20 or 30, 40 commercials. Couldn't get one. Not one. And then when I moved over here to the UK, and I took a 15-year break and I didn't do any acting. I didn't do any performing whatsoever. I just raised a family and decided I was just going to be a normal person, and so I worked as a chef for a while. Then I ran a large wine bar, and then I became a food salesman. I worked for a large food supplier and, did that for 15 years. And then when I got divorced, again, seemed to be a pattern.
Yes, I understand. I've followed in your footsteps.
Huh?
I said I have followed in your footsteps.
Oh, twice for you too, huh?
Yes, sir.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I think it's the Ross Geller syndrome or something.
Good for somebody.
Yeah. So we... when I guess, I started getting back into it again. And I slowly just started building up and at first year and a half, just trying to do things here compared to the States. It's a whole different ballgame. And so for about 2 years in, I finally got an agent, a decent agent, that I was really happy with. And I'm still with her today. And she just started putting me out there for stuff. And I guess it was my age, my look, and I finally started getting these commercials. They started coming in, and I was lucky enough, and and they're all kind of big brand commercials, big name, big brand commercials that I was doing over here. And it's been pretty steady on the commercials ever since. I've probably done about 15.
Yeah, what do you attribute that to? I mean, you've got such a familiar, welcoming face. Obviously, commercials, 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes most. And so you got and you're part of it's maybe seconds that ultimately makes it. But somehow it's just a different art form, isn't it?
It is. You have to say a lot in a very short amount of time, or at least with the director, what they want to see at that moment.
Yeah.
And maybe that works for me. I don't know, but I've been able to pull them off, and it's very fortunate because that's your bread and butter, waiting for the other stuff. But I still do theater.
Yeah.
When I was, here's what happened again. Another transition for me in my life was that I'm still working my day job, and I was just basically just doing commercials and any little TV spot that came along. And at one point, I really wanted to do theater. My agent kept asking me if I wanted, audition for this show. And I said, well, I really can't, because I can't, what do I do after the show? If it's a 6-week, 8-week run of a show, I don't have a job to go back to, and I still need my income.
Sure.
I'm still struggling at the time. And it got to a point where I had to make a choice and kind of take a leap of faith. So I sold my house. And I quit my job, and I did take that leap of faith and hoped that jobs would come along, so I wouldn't have to try to find another job again. And I got really lucky in this, I was fortunate enough that I got immediately got a job in a theater production that we were doing in Italy. We did this immersive, site-specific immersive show in Italy. It was a show based on Hamlet.
Where was it located? You say site-specific.
We did it in Milan.
But was it a specific venue? Like, was it in a theater?
We did it in an old schoolhouse.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Wow.
An old 5-story schoolhouse.
Wow.
And these site-specific immersive plays, things are going on in different rooms at the same time.
Right.
So the audience just walks around, and they're wearing these robes, and they're supposed to be the ghosts.
Huh.
And so they can engage with you. They can do all kinds. They don't necessarily talk to you, but they can stand very close to you. They can move things around. They can do, it changes. So every night something could change, even though the dialogue's similar.
Yeah.
And have this track that you have to follow throughout the show. Every night's a little bit different.
Sounds amazing, and then it sounds like it could also be amazingly annoying some nights.
Oh, we had problems. we had issues with certain audience members and things like that. But
it sounds like if you took a haunted house and made it into a Shakespearean theater is what it sounds like.
Yeah, kind of. It was kind of like that. Yeah. It was very, very different. It was very different. It was very unique, and we we had a great cast. It was a lot of fun, and we were switching roles. So I would play one of the lead roles, and then I would play one of the homeless.
Yeah.
As well. And when I was playing one of the homeless, I had complete freedom to do whatever I wanted. So every time I was playing a homeless guy, I could go in any room I wanted, anytime I wanted, do any kind of weird thing I wanted to do, engage. They gave us a couple little monologues to do, and I would throw those around at different points. And, but we were never allowed to actually talk to the ghosts. We weren't supposed to actually see them.
Sure, they're ghosts.
They could sit right down next to you. They could put their hand on you.
Right.
They could do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But you couldn't talk to them.
That sounds fascinating. Well, do you speak Italian? Because you probably couldn't talk to them anyway.
It was all in English.
Oh, I see.
English anyway.
Of course it was. They knew English. That's
I think they can understand enough, but
yeah.
But what you get is you get audience members coming back 2 and 3 times, so you can see everything that happens in every room at some point,
right?
And put the story together. Or a couple would come in and they'd separate, and they go their different ways, and then they talk about what they saw and put everything together afterwards.
That's very cool. And you've been pretty successful in working ever since. I mean, you quit that food service job or the food job.
I've stayed pretty steady the last 5.5 years.
Good for you, man.
It was probably a good choice to do. I just finished doing a couple of TV shows and a film and a couple of commercials.
And obviously you're coming out of the strike. We hope you're coming out of the strike, but it's probably been a slow, since about May, right?
I haven't had any work since all that stuff I was talking about. I did back at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got a couple things coming out, and I don't even know if I can talk about them right now. We're not supposed to advertise anything.
Oh, well, you'll have to come back and talk about them, for goodness sakes.
Yeah. I can talk about the TV show I did here. I did they have a show here called Casualty, which is kind of a night soap.
Huh.
And I just played, a guy who almost dies, another Jewish guy.
Yeah, and here, by the way, is London. You're just outside of London, are you?
I'm 200 miles outside of London.
Oh, that's more than just.
I live near Leeds.
Okay.
Which is in the center of the country.
Very neat. Yeah. And I mean, gosh, you've done so much. It seems to me I don't want to say this in the wrong way, because you're a great actor, but you also don't mind doing unusual things, doing these things that are outside the box, both to keep working, but also, I think you enjoy it. I think you enjoy doing different things and maybe not doing the same thing all the time.
You know what? I just go where the work is, really. I don't think about it too much. I have this thing, I get a lot of auditions for Jew stuff.
Yeah.
I am definitely the go-to Jew in this country.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a little bit about it. If you, there's this conversation now coming out of Bradley Cooper playing Leonard Bernstein, and this so-called cultural appropriation, which I don't know. I have a feeling on it, which my feelings don't matter much. But then I look at you're a character actor. You're a person that looks like other people, maybe not a specific person, but a specific type of person. What's your take on all of that?
What? Because are you talking about that he put a big nose on him?
Well, I mean, that's one part of it. But then there's even a conversation now about whether if you're not, Jewish, you shouldn't be playing Jewish people. If you're not Italian, you shouldn't be playing Italian people. And I don't know, that's very limiting. And that's just not how it's been historically. I think if you're, it just seems very limiting.
It hasn't been. Well, it's funny because it goes both ways.
Sure.
I mean, look at something like Hamilton, and I don't think any of that matters at all.
Right. It's the exact opposite, right?
It is the exact opposite. And that's happening more and more, which is great.
Right.
And so I don't know why people are getting so up in arms because he's playing a Jewish character. I don't think that should make a difference at all.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, no one's ever gotten on me if I played an Italian character before.
Right. I mean, if in the nose, I mean, if one were to put on a nose to play a Jew, I think that could be problematic. If you put on a nose to play a specific person who had a large nose, well, that's just looking like that person.
That's exactly it. And I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly why he put that nose on. Had nothing to do with say, oh, Jews have big noses, I'm going to put one on.
Right. This man looked like something, and he wanted to look more like that man.
Absolutely. And they do that all the time in film.
Yeah.
Constantly. You see people, wearing prosthetics and to look like whoever. I mean, they have I just saw a picture of Helen Mirren playing Golda Meir. Okay, so they did this whole thing to make her look like Golda Meir,
right? Because we all know what Golda Meir looks like, right? I mean, I got my trading cards of her from her rookie year, and she looked great.
Don't we all?
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, that's acting, right?
That's part of acting, and you know what? And I think anybody can play anything nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters. And I think people, when they get up in arms, why are they getting up in arms about that? It seems petty to me. And it's that whole woke society, I guess. Is that what it is? I mean, over here, it's different.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I say it's different, we have different ways of thinking about all of that over here.
You got to be respectful and tasteful and not degrading. And that should be the universal quality. But,
people just need things to complain about. It's the bottom line. And, if they don't like something, now they have the social media and these phones that they can do whatever they want and hide behind them and say whatever they want just so they can have their 15 minutes of fame.
Everybody has a take, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And everybody's allowed to have it now as well. 25 years ago, you didn't have those opportunities because they didn't present themselves in the way that they do now.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get a platform for sure. But man, your platforms have been amazing. I have been following you for forever, literally. And I'm so excited to get to chat with you again.
Yeah, you too. I'm glad you got in touch. I love doing these kind of things. I'm actually thinking of starting how you, let me ask you about the origin of your origin.
Yeah.
Of doing a podcast, because all of a sudden out of the blue, you said you're doing a podcast. We talked a year ago, and that probably wasn't even a thought in your mind at the time, was it?
Yeah, kind of like you. I have a lot of thoughts, and I go where the opportunities are. But I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love the format. They're very accessible. And, I'm blessed because of the life I've lived to know a lot of interesting people, yourself included. And I thought, what a great way to document their stories, but to do it in a little different way, rather than, maybe talk about the latest things that people are doing, to talk about their first rodeo, to talk about their paths to success. So
everybody loves an origin story, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I mean, I know I do. I love to find out how people got started in the career and the kind of things that got them there and, what their thought process was. I love all of that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, hopefully people know a little bit more about yours. And I do encourage people especially to go on YouTube and find your comedy work, because it is hysterical and it's one of a kind, and it's a great legacy to have.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Keep looking out for me. I've got stuff coming out. I don't know about it if it's in the States, but I just finished. They just finished series 2 of Foundation. Mm-hmm. You watched it? No?
Yeah, I've seen it
on Apple TV. Have you seen the whole series?
No, I have not.
have you seen series 2? You haven't seen all of series 2 yet?
No, just in 1.
Oh, okay. Well, watch 2. I'm in 2.
Okay.
I'm in a couple of episodes where I don't say anything, and then I have one little tiny scene at the end of episode 10. That's it. And then, I've got Casualty out. If there's any Brits watching, that's on BBC Radio, not BBC Radio, BBC iPlayer, and I have a show on Prime Video called Hapless, which I play another rabbi.
How about that? I don't know.
Yeah, what a stretch.
Getting in touch with your roots, man. You got to keep that beard.
But it's very funny, that show. It's about this Jewish journalist for a small Jewish paper in East Finchley. Huh. And he's just this guy that all kinds of little things happen to him because, he doesn't have much of a filter. And I'm one of the characters that comes through. And hopefully we're going to do a series 3 where I'll have another episode.
I will definitely check that out. And
well, you can't. They're trying to get it on in the States at the moment. It's not. It's only here. It's only on here. But for the most part, I keep busy. So I'm happy. It's slow now, but look, once the strike is done, I think it'll be good for all of us.
Well,
and like I said, did I say this already? I don't know, but I turned down a job because of the strike, even though it wasn't connected. Yeah.
No, that's the right thing to do.
I want to stand with my my union brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
But even though I'm all the way over here, I still have my union card in LA. So.
Well, I'm glad we're coming out of it, and I look forward to catching up with you offline.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks a lot for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you. There you have it. That was Michael Siegel, my old friend, now a citizen of England, and he's a cool guy. He really is. I highly encourage you to go check out not just his movies, but the work that he and Lacassi did. That you can find on YouTube. Really funny stuff. Unique, original, physical, and just entertaining. I mean, you hear the audiences when you listen to it, just laughing uncontrollably and hysterically, and even the best comedy. There's a lot more ahas. There's a lot more other types of reactions, which are great. But man, the release that you get when you just have a real good belly laugh that you just can't stop laughing. You have to catch your breath, and that happens, for 10, 15, 20 minutes on end. What a gift. What a gift they brought to their audiences that you can still share by watching on YouTube. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think the discussion about ethnicity and playing other ethnicities is an interesting one. I don't pretend to have the answers. He has a particular take as a person who is of a Jewish background, but also looks Mediterranean, can pass for and has and shows past for other ethnicities, usually not the leading roles. So he is a character actor in the traditional sense. And is it wrong? Is it wrong for him to have those opportunities when someone who is the actual ethnicity could have it? Or is that just part of acting and the ability to tastefully play a whole bunch of different roles? I mean, even if you're playing your exact ethnicity, you're playing a person with a different backstory to you. So that's acting. Is it not acting to also just play a different culture as long as you learn it and play it truly and respectfully without punching down? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't pretend to know the answer to, but I think this interview helps us advance that conversation. I hope you enjoyed that one, and I look forward to talking to you next time on the My First Rodeo podcast. I hope you will continue to listen. I hope you will subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and I hope you'll share it with others. Please also check out Freed to Run. That is the charity event that we have historically done to raise money for pediatric patients. We've raised $2.25 million for pediatric patients through the Medical Legal Partnership, and now we're moving on to create a new endowment for shelter for elders for the indigent homeless community. We're doing the Freed to Run Challenge this year, November 17th and 18th. That's a 24-hour run that you can join us in, or you can support, you can sponsor, and of course you can make donations at freed2 freedtorun.com. That's FREEDTORUN.com. I'm Mike Freed. Thanks for listening to My First Rodeo podcast.